Do you find yourself reaching for your phone at 3 in the morning, typing words you know you'll regret, calling someone who has hurt you more times than you can count? Maybe they don't even respond, but you keep reaching anyway. Maybe you tell yourself it's the last time, and then the next crisis happens, and you're there again, magnetized to the very person or situation that has been slowly dismantling you. Maybe no one around you understands. They say, just leave. They say, why do you keep going back? They say it like it's simple, like you haven't already tried, like something in you isn't literally addicted to the pain. If this sounds familiar, then this video is for you. Not because we will give you easy answers, but because here you will find a truth that is both terrifying and liberating. The thing that keeps you trapped is not the other person. It is you. And the moment you understand that, everything changes. Carl Gustav Jung, one of the greatest minds in psychology, spent his career studying why people are magnetized to patterns that destroy them. He observed something most therapists won't say out loud. Trauma survivors don't just experience suffering. They become loyal to it. They mistake intensity for love. They confuse familiarity with safety. And most devastatingly, they believe that if they can just manage the chaos well enough, if they can just be good enough, loving enough, perfect enough, the person hurting them will finally transform. They will finally see their worth. They will finally stop. But Jung knew this was a trap. A trap so powerful that even people with insight, education, and awareness fall into it. And perhaps, right now, you are caught in exactly that trap. This pain you feel, this inability to leave even when you know you should, is not weakness. It is not stupidity. It is not because you are too broken or too damaged to deserve better. It is because your nervous system has been conditioned to believe that danger is love, that betrayal is belonging, that the familiar, no matter how painful, is preferable to the unknown. What is happening inside you is not a choice. It is a hijacking. Jung would call this the activation of the shadow in repetition. And that is what we are going to talk about in this video. You will understand why leaving trauma feels like betrayal, even though you know intellectually that staying is self-destruction. You will learn why your body pulls you back to the person who hurt you, why their coldness feels more real than someone's warmth, why the chaos is oddly comforting. And above all, you will discover that there is a way out. Not out of love, but out of the trance. To break the spell. To finally, for the first time in your life, choose safety over familiarity. To walk away when trauma feels like home. You may be trapped right now, but this is not forever. Perhaps for the first time, it is the beginning of your escape. Most people believe that the reason you stay in a painful relationship or pattern is because you are not thinking clearly. But Carl Jung saw it differently. For him, the attachment to trauma was not a failure of logic. It was a failure of the psyche to integrate its own wounds. It was the unconscious playing out a script that was written long ago, in a place you barely remember, by people who may have already died. What Jung called the repetition compulsion is the phenomenon where your psyche, without your permission, recreates the conditions of your original trauma. It is as if your nervous system has locked onto a frequency, and now, no matter where you go, who you meet, what opportunities arise, you are tuned to one thing and one thing only. Finding someone, or a situation, that matches the pain you were originally given. And when you find it, you feel seen. You feel home. Because it is home. It is the home you learned to survive in. And your system, designed by nature to seek what is familiar, has become addicted to the patterns that nearly destroyed you. But here is what most people miss. Your attraction to this pain is not evidence that you deserve it. It is evidence that you survived it. Your body learned to function in an environment of unpredictability, of conditional love, of having to earn safety. And now, genuine safety feels like abandonment. It feels empty. It feels wrong. Because it does not activate the survival responses that kept you alive as a child. When someone treats you well, with consistency, with respect, without drama, your system becomes suspicious. Bored even. Because safety does not trigger the chemical rush of cortisol and adrenaline that your body learned to interpret as proof that someone cares. But intensity? Crisis. The threat of abandonment followed by explosive reconciliation? That is a drug. That is a cocktail of cortisol and dopamine that your nervous system has become utterly dependent on. This is not love. This is trauma bonding. And Jung knew that until you understand this mechanism, you will keep returning to it. He observed that his most suffering patients were not the ones trying to escape their patterns. They were the ones who didn't yet know they were in a pattern at all. They thought they were special. They thought this particular relationship was different. They thought that if they could just understand their partner better, or fix themselves, or try harder, the pain would transform into love. But it would never, because they were not trying to save the relationship. They were trying to heal the original wound through the person replicating it. And that can never work. The person hurting you is not your parent. They are not your unconscious. And they cannot heal what was broken before you ever met them. This is the most difficult truth Jung wanted his patients to understand. The pain you are experiencing is not caused by the other person. It is being triggered by them. There is a difference. The wound was always there. The other person is simply the match, not the fire. And as long as you are focused on trying to change them, to fix them, to finally make them love you the way you needed to be loved, you remain trapped in the original trauma. You remain a child trying to make your parents see your worth. You remain powerless. But here is what happens when you finally understand this. The focus shifts. It is no longer about them. It is about you. It is about the part of you that chose this, that accepted this, that kept choosing this even when every warning sign was screaming. And that is the moment everything changes. Because now you are no longer a victim of circumstances. You are a participant in your own destruction. And that is terrifying. But it is also the only door to freedom. Jung spent years with patients who were trapped in these cycles, and he documented something remarkable. The people who broke free were not the ones who felt the most pain. They were the ones who finally got angry at themselves, who finally admitted their complicity, who finally said, I chose this. I allowed this. And I can choose differently. This anger, this recognition of your own power in the dynamic, is not self-blame. It is self-reclamation. It is taking your power back from the person or situation that has been holding it. And that is what we will talk about next. In the next part, we will discuss the moment when you stop blaming them and start recognizing your own role. Because that moment is when you become capable of walking away. And not just walking away physically. Walking away psychologically, energetically, spiritually. Not every person who experiences trauma becomes trapped in repetition. Some people feel the pain once and vow never again. But many do not. Many people spend years, decades, entire lifetimes replaying the same dynamic with different people, different circumstances, but the same underlying pattern. Carl Jung wanted to understand why. What makes some people repeat while others learn? And he discovered something troubling. It was not about how much pain they had experienced. It was about whether they had ever truly faced it alone, faced it in silence, faced it without trying to heal it through another person. After the break with Freud, perhaps the most painful rupture of his life, Jung entered what he called a confrontation with the unconscious. He was alone. He had lost his mentor, his professional security, his framework for understanding the world. But instead of rushing into a new relationship or pattern to replace what was lost, Jung did something radical. He stayed with the emptiness. He spent years in deep introspection, recording his inner experience, dialoguing with the parts of himself he had never wanted to meet. He documented this in his red book, drawings and writings that depicted his confrontation with the shadow. Not as enemy, but as neglected part. Not as something to conquer, but as something to integrate. And what Jung discovered changed everything. He realized that every time he had felt magnetized to Freud, every time he had unconsciously recreated dependency, it was because there was a part of him that had never learned to be alone. A part of him that needed someone else to tell him who he was. So, when Freud could no longer do that, instead of falling into panic and seeking another authority figure, Jung decided to become his own authority, to face himself completely, to ask the questions he had been avoiding. And in that solitude, he found something he would never have found through relationship, the self. But why does this matter to you? Because if you are trapped in a trauma cycle right now, you are also being asked the same question Jung faced. Are you willing to be alone? Truly alone? Not in loneliness, but in solitude? In the space where no one is coming to rescue you, define you, or complete you. Because as long as you believe that someone else can fix your wound, you will keep returning to the person replicating it. But when you finally accept that no one is coming, that the work is yours alone, something shifts. You stop waiting. You stop trying to change them. You stop believing that if you just loved them harder, they would finally see. You face the fact that you may never get what you were looking for from them, and you begin, for the first time, to give it to yourself. This is not abandonment. This is reclamation. This is the only real way to walk away. Not in anger, not in rage, not in drama, but in a kind of quiet completion. In a decision that says, I see you. I understand why I chose you. And I choose to leave you to your own becoming, because I cannot be responsible for your healing, and you cannot be responsible for mine. That confrontation, that moment of facing yourself alone, is the most difficult threshold. Most people do not cross it. Most people, instead of facing the void, immediately fill it. They jump to the next person. They reconstruct the same dynamic with a new face. They tell themselves they have learned, but they haven't. They have simply extended the cycle. But there is a path for those who are ready. Not to avoid the pain, but to move through it. Not to escape the trauma, but to integrate it. Not to find someone who will save them, but to save themselves. And that path has a structure. Jung mapped it. It is a three-stage process, and it is what separates those who break the cycle from those who remain trapped. The first stage is recognition. Not understanding the pattern intellectually, but feeling it in your body. It is when you stop thinking about why you should leave and you start feeling the reality of what staying costs. You begin to notice the moments when you are not yourself. When you are small, apologetic, contorted into an impossible shape trying to fit the space they have allotted you. You notice the exhaustion, the spiritual depletion, the way your own voice has become quieter and quieter until you can barely hear it anymore. This is not a phase of decision. It is a phase of witness. You are finally looking at the situation without defense, without rationalization, without hope that it will change. You are simply seeing. And that seeing, that honest witnessing, is the first crack in the trance. The second stage is reckoning. This is where it gets hard, because now you must face why you stayed, why you kept choosing this. What in you has been so hungry for this particular brand of pain that you have been willing to sacrifice your own becoming? In this stage, you begin to feel the anger. The anger at them for hurting you, yes, but more importantly, the anger at yourself for accepting it. This anger is not meant to be directed outward as blame. It is fuel. It is the energy of your power returning to you. It is your self-preservation instinct finally waking up. Jung observed that his patients who were able to move through this stage with honesty were the ones who broke free, because they were no longer divided. They were no longer part of them wanting to leave and part of them wanting to stay. They had integrated all their parts. They had admitted their complicity. And from that wholeness came real choice. The third stage is release. This is the most subtle and most powerful moment. It is not about going back to who you were before, because that version of you has been shaped by this experience. It is about moving forward as someone who has seen the truth and chosen differently. Release does not mean that you stop loving them. It means that you love them from a distance, that you recognize their humanity without being bound to their pain, that you understand they are on their own journey, and you cannot drag them toward healing any more than they can drag you toward destruction. This release is not rushed. It is not dramatic. It is slow, sometimes agonizing, sometimes peaceful. Some days you will wonder if you made the right choice. Some days you will miss them with an intensity that surprises you. But you do not go back. Because you have seen. You cannot unsee. And you know now what the cost of staying actually is. This process, of course, is not linear. You may return to old patterns, old thoughts, old doubts. You may feel the magnetic pull many times. But now you have awareness. And that awareness transforms everything. Because awareness reveals that the pull is not love. It is habit. It is fear. It is the screaming of a nervous system that is terrified of the unknown. And you can feel all of that and still choose to leave. You can love someone and still walk away. You can be grateful for what they taught you and still refuse to stay. But here arises an even deeper and perhaps more difficult question. What if the reason you feel safer in trauma is because trauma is all you have known? What if the familiar pain is not a tragedy, but the only home you ever had? Now that you are facing the possibility of leaving, now that everything you thought was love is being revealed as a trap, tell me, what is stopping you? Perhaps it is not the other person who has power over you. Perhaps it is the part of you that was shaped by your family, your childhood, your first lessons about love and belonging. Perhaps you were taught that love means pain, that attention means unpredictability, that if someone hurts you, it means they care. You learn to interpret cruelty as commitment. And now, when someone is simply kind, you feel nothing. Because kindness was not what love looked like in the place where you learned what love was. So you seek out the familiar. You seek out chaos. You seek out someone who will make you work for their affection, the way you always have. And part of you is relieved, because at least you know the rules. At least you know that if you try hard enough, perform well enough, become small enough, perhaps you can finally win. Carl Jung warned us about this. He said that psychological suffering removes our illusions about the world, but only if we pay attention. The trap you are in is not the trap of a bad person. It is the trap of a false belief. A belief that you learned so long ago that you have forgotten it is a belief at all. It is a belief that love must hurt, that belonging requires self-abandonment, that the only proof of devotion is the willingness to endure pain. That belief is a cage, and the other person is just the lock. The real prison is in you. And if you focus only on leaving them without interrogating the belief, you will just find another person who confirms it. You will just rebuild the same structure with new materials, because the foundation is still rotten. You will leave one traumatic relationship and enter another, thinking something is different, but it never is. The ruins you are living in are not a tragedy. They are a signal. They are the psyche saying, this is no longer tenable. This structure can no longer hold. And it is offering you something it rarely offers. A chance to build something different. Something not based on fear, not based on old patterns, but based on genuine truth about who you are and what you need to thrive. But that freedom has a cost. Total responsibility. When you are in the relationship, you can blame them. You can tell yourself you are a victim. But the moment you truly leave, when you acknowledge your own role in staying, you cannot hide anymore. What you build now is entirely yours. The choices you make about who to trust, whether to repeat patterns, how to relate to another person, those are all yours. And that is terrifying because it means you can never again say, I had no choice. You can never again say, they made me do this. You can never again surrender your agency to someone else's actions or intentions. You are now the architect of your life. And if you build poorly, you cannot blame anyone but yourself. And that is when true healing begins. In the next part, we will speak directly to those who are at this very point. The point where you can see the trap, and you know you should leave, but leaving feels like death. We will explore what to do when staying hurts and leaving hurts, and there seems to be no way out that does not involve devastation. If you are caught in a traumatic cycle right now, let me be direct with you. The moment you finish watching this video, you will face a choice. You can close it, return to your familiar patterns, and nothing will change. You can tell yourself that your situation is different, that they really do love you, that it will be better this time. And you can be right. It might be better for a while, and then it will get worse again. Or you can do something different. You can accept that what you are experiencing is not love. It is a neurobiological hijacking. And you can begin, right now, to reclaim yourself. Understand this. The person you are attached to is not the source of your pain. They are the trigger. The real pain lives inside you, in a memory you cannot quite access, in a child part of you that never got what she needed, never heard the words that would have changed everything. And no adult can give you what your child self needed. That is not their job. That is your job. And the longer you keep trying to get them to do your internal work, the longer you stay trapped. The collapse you are experiencing, the moment where everything seems to be falling apart, where you cannot keep pretending anymore, where the cognitive dissonance becomes too much to bear, that is not a crisis. It is an intervention. It is your psyche trying to save you. It is your system finally screaming loud enough that you cannot ignore it. Jung said that the unconscious speaks through symptoms, through crisis, through the repetition of painful patterns. And when ignored for too long, it breaks. It creates collapse. It creates situations that you cannot deny any longer. And yes, that is devastating. Yes, it is frightening. But it is also merciful. Because a slow deterioration would have gone on forever. The collapse forces a choice. It does not allow you to continue as before. And that is a gift, even though it feels like punishment. If you are in that collapse right now, I want you to know something. You do not need to have all the answers. You do not need to know how to be alone. You do not need to have your life figured out. You just need to accept that the question has changed. It is no longer, how can I make this work? The question now is, who am I if I am not trying to survive this? And that is a question only you can answer. But you cannot answer it while you are still in the pattern. You cannot hear your own voice while you are spending all your energy trying to hear theirs. You cannot meet yourself while you are running toward someone who will not meet you. The reconstruction does not happen in a hurry. It is slow, intentional, solitary. You cannot do it while you are still in contact with the person who is triggering your trauma wound. That is like trying to heal a burn while you are still touching the flame. The break needs to be clean. Not violent, not angry, but complete, so that you have space to finally hear yourself, to remember what you want, to remember what it feels like to take up space without apologizing, to remember who you were before you learned to contort yourself. And there is wisdom in that remembering. There is truth in the return to yourself. The collapse was not the end. It was the call. And everything you need to move forward is already within you, waiting to be recognized. You don't need to rush. You don't need to have it all figured out. This reconstruction is not about building back what was there. It is about building something that was never allowed to exist. Something that only you can create. Because only you know what you actually need. Only you know what it feels like when you are being true to yourself. And for the first time, no one is asking you to be anything else. Now I want to hear from you. Leave a simple phrase in the comments. I am choosing myself. This is not just a phrase. It is a declaration. It is a statement to your nervous system, to the pattern, to the part of you that has been magnetized to pain. It is a promise to yourself that you are willing to be different. If this video touched you in any way, share it with someone who is also trapped and needs to hear that they are not alone, that they are not broken, that walking away is the brave choice. And most importantly, subscribe to the channel to continue this journey with us.